Ryo was an ugly, disgusting, useless child who awakened God's divine protection by sacrificing his life and incarnated his secret soul in a blazing aura to incinerate the demon lord out of existence. He was the incarnation of the Guardian legend, who single-handedly repelled the entire demon lord's army 1,000 years into the past. But after pulverizing the entire army with his divine lance, the demon lord thought the monkey was amusing and backstabbed Shu Tian, forever throwing the 6 realms in chaos and discord. With Buddhism itself dissolving, however, Shu Tian scattered his spirit into 72 pieces across the cosmos. But the cataclysms would continue devastating the human realm. So when Gen saw their home was about to collapse, he told his brother to shut his worthless fucking mouth, and began carrying the useless burden before the roof collapsed and ended their miserable lives. At the same time, their father narrowly avoided the pillar's collapse before landing on his feet, facing the demon by parrying his chains until Asmodeus destroyed the ground underneath and smashed Anli into a pillar that collapsed on his body. However, Gen swore that he would help his father, but as the demon leapt to end their lives, Anli protected his worthless burdens and stunned Asmodeus before throwing the retarded morons onto the top of the highest pillar, blocking the beast's blow before releasing the chains in his staff and restrained the demon to drag him away until he needed his skull to gain the upper ground. As he tried suffocating him, Asmodeus destroyed his weapon, but Anli shot them down to surround the demon before activating the chains of heaven, commanding the surrounding pillars to morph into a fist that pulverized Asmodeus underneath. His brain-dead son thought his father was amazing, but Anli told Gen to run until they entered an overgrown area. After exploring the mysterious cave for 2 hours, they arrived at the ancient relic of the deities, where Anli began throwing up some gang signs to release vines that were concealing 2 swords. As he commanded Gen to raise one of them, a golden aura emanated before their eyes, and the god of war's remnant levitated into the air. His father revealed that this would awaken the god dormant within Ryo, and that it was his destiny to one day save the world. But when they felt the cave collapsing, they began running away while the secret charms activated, until they reached a bridge connecting to the center of a volcano. However, Anli noticed something was off as the ceiling collapsed, and Asmodeus smashed his face onto the ground. Even so, Anli used his magic to distract the beast until he locked his legs to escape his grasp and begged the heavens to lend them his power. All around the demon, sigils began releasing an aura that imprisoned the beast, throwing him into the lava. From the dust, Gen was glad to see his father was still alive, but a hand stabbed through his chest, and a hot girl revealed that she had waited 1,000 years for this day. As Anli's life was about to end, however, he told Gen to protect his useless brother, releasing the forbidden teleportation spell to send them across the stars. But as the demon princess nearly killed Gen, their souls ascended towards the sky, and Anli hoped his children would survive in the realm of demi-humans. 13 years had passed since then, and on Ryo's 14th birthday, Gen commenced his Demon Slayer graduation ritual, releasing his mana to surround Ryo with the power of the gods, until his seal was opened and the mana was absorbed. So with the gods having accepted him, Gen went on to reveal the relic his father left behind, but Ryo wondered what it was. Just then, Gandalf began screaming for help and begged the boys to save his daughter from the cat demons, promising to pay them with his life savings. However, Gen thought he was a scammer, so he told Dumbledore that he'll be attending his daughter's funeral. But when the pouch fell and a golden bell came out, he realized it was the same one the demon mistress used, and screamed at the man to reveal where he found it. So the man told them about an abandoned village where everyone disappeared in the mist. But when Gen turned around, he noticed that his brother had disappeared because he was still a useless burden. Just then, a hot cat girl nearly slashed his head off, and kept disappearing into the mist before his strikes would connect. But as she mocked him for being powerless, Gen began spinning until a tornado dissolved the fog around them. So the fox girl begged him to spare her life, swearing to do anything he desired. However, Gen thought her body was disgusting, but as soon as he turned his back, she promised to remember his kindness and leapt to end his life. In that moment, he activated his reverse blades to slash her down. But before her life would end, she revealed that her brother would be killing his. At the same time, Ryo narrowly blocked an attack from the cat demon, and Gen decided this would be his brother's last trial before graduating. As the demon cast air slashes towards Ryo, he narrowly evaded them to close the distance. But as the spirit materialized from above, Ryo cast him away and used his staff to break the bones in his arm. However, the demon vanished as it began moving faster than his eyes could perceive, and destroyed his staff. But as Gen was about to save his brother, Ryo's staff emitted a golden light, and as he grabbed it, he threw the divine staff towards the demon. The radiance of its activation alerted the 6 spectral realms that the god of war, for the first time in 1,000 years, had been reborn. As the cat realized that Ryo had managed to launch the staff before losing consciousness, he tried to escape, but Gen appeared at that moment, threatening to end his life as he asked him what the golden bell was. As he rang it once more, the effects of the bell began forcing the demon to confess, revealing that the bell prophesied the war god's revival, and that he needed to kill the demon slayer to extract the soul fragment away. Just then, the ball began flying on its own until it went deep inside of his throat, so Gen tried running to protect his unconscious brother, before a golden light exploded. At the same time, the fairies realized that the time had finally arrived, and teleported into the human realm. By the time the sun rose, Gen congratulated his brother on becoming a demon slayer, and awakening his special weapon. But as Ryo went to grab it, the divine staff shrunk back to its original size. However, the fairies commanded them to hand it over, but although Gen had suffered internal bleeding after the explosion, he unsheathed his blades to slash them down. But the girl knocked him away, threatening to incinerate him if he moved. But the second fairy teleported between them, saying they were on his side. So as he cast a healing spell onto Gen's arm, the man revealed that they were sent to retrieve the war god's iron, and introduced himself as Sero, while the dumbass pig next to him was Aoba. Both of the brothers were happy she was hot after all, but Sero went on to reveal that during the Age of Gods, Shu Tian was assassinated by the god of race. However, he had scattered his soul into 72 fragments so that he could one day reawaken, and save the gods to incarnate the Buddha once more. But at the same time, he went on to reveal that the demon lord would begin targeting them, to reawaken Shu Tian as his own servant for destroying the world. As Ryo realized they were telling the truth, he decided to give them his wand, apologizing to his brother for losing their father's gift. However, Aoba screamed at them for giving her a fake rod, so when Ryo wondered why she thought it was fake, the golden aura returned in his hands.
What did he say?
However, Sero revealed that the Shenzhen iron would only awaken under someone with a pure heart, so Gen thought her personality was as worthless as her chest. Without any other options, she commanded Ryo to come with them if he valued his life, making Gen wonder if this was their father's plan all along, but thought it would be interesting traveling with 2 fairies. So as they prepared to leave their home forever, Ryo activated the compass within his wand, pointing them towards a valley in the distance, and Sero summoned their hovercraft carrier as they began their adventure. A few hours later, they began devouring all the meat on the table, but as Aoba asked if they were secretly African children, Gen revealed that they were only eating because they were scared of becoming flat like her. However, he told her that any size makes the wood rise, so she began begging him for his drumstick. Outside in the dreary desert, a hot chick collapsed onto the ground, and the autopilot narrowly avoided running her over before crashing in the distance. So as Gen tried seeing why they crashed, he found the chick and started running until she collapsed in his arms. But after he realized she was wounded, he decided to take another look to see how big the wound was. However, Aoba wouldn't allow him to bring a strange girl inside, but he wondered if she was jealous because she wasn't as flat as a cutting board. Even so, she thought something was strange that he found her in the middle of nowhere, as the hot girl was glad that Gen was falling for her trick. A few hours later, she regained consciousness, but although Gen wanted to massage her sore body, Sarah wondered who she was and how she was stabbed by a knife. So she introduced herself as Ying, revealing that she was stabbed by a group of bandits before she could escape, and began crying as she said she was scared because she still needed to get back to the dark cave. However, Gen swore that he would protect her, since they were also heading to collect the fragment from that same cave. When she saw his wand, she was glad to have sacrificed her life for the heavenly weapon. But the cameraman also sacrificed his life to get this heavenly shot. Later that night, as Gen was having a wet dream, Ying attempted to cast her webs towards Ryo. But as the door opened, she quickly hid her strings. From outside, Sarah was glad to have a hot body after his shower, but knew something was wrong about Ying. So after pretending he was in the wrong room, Ying wondered if she accidentally entered a mental asylum. By the time the morning arrived, Gen prepared to show Ying his back-breaking moves. But she was nowhere to be found, and Gen thought that the bandits had kidnapped her again, so he swore to save her. However, when Ryo discovered she had stolen his little rod, Juzaioba lost her mind, as Zai Ying had finally arrived at the cave. Seeing her sister for the first time since she was kidnapped, she was shocked by the way they had tied her up, so she gave the rod to Hao Ming in exchange for Zai Yan, fulfilling their deal. But after untying her and walking away, an ugly loser with a massive nose who looked like he was fighting an addiction and chemotherapy at the same time blocked their way. The leader revealed that they only returned her sister, but never said she was allowed to leave. However, as she tried casting her string towards his face, it returned to bind his legs together, dragging him onto the ground and stole the rod back from him. But as Yang rushed towards her, she pretended to cast a spell to scare him off, before releasing her discharge into his mouth, so she pulled her sister away. But before reaching the entrance, Zai Yan's useless ass fell down, and as the demons began getting closer, Zai Ying cast a web to trap them, but Hao Ming sliced it, and nearly slashed the sisters in half. When Yang wondered what she was looking for, she tried kicking him away, but he seized her leg and began spreading them apart. At the same time, Zai Ying dodged Hao Ming's sword and cast her web at Yang, binding him to the wall. But when Hao Ming tried cutting her in half, she turned this show from being ass to this show having ass and tried to cast a web at his face, but he summoned rocks out of the ground to crush her body, knocking her unconscious. With Zai Ying too exhausted to run, Yang decided to cast a spell and successfully trapped them inside King Kong's barrier, revealing that no one could escape from it. Outside the cave, as Sero tried finding the perfect route on his device, Jen suggested they split up before they began heading inside. But as they ran through the passages, Ryo noticed they look exactly the same, and began wondering if they were lost. However, Jen thought Ziying's scent was very close, and when they arrived at the center of the cave, they saw that Ziying has been captured, and the disgusting leader was trying to have a threesome with the two girls. At that moment, Ryo grew angry, and tried defending his crush, but Jen stopped him as the barrier vanished. Just as Koro prepared to massage her plot, Ziying cast a web that grazed his face, forcing him to back away. However, this only made him angry, and he summoned rocks out of the ground, but Ziyan protected her sister, and got killed after taking a fatal wound. Seeing her dying, Jen jumped to slay him, but Koro blocked his sword, making him land on the other side. As Ryo tried knocking the skinny loser's head, he dodged and smacked him away for being a weakling, and Ju Zioba blasted a hole into the cave at the same time. At the sight of Ziying's shitty face, Ju Zioba unleashed an energy blast to obliterate her, but Jen protected her, and the blast punched a hole in the cave. As she wondered if he lost his fucking mind, he tried telling her that Ziying was just a victim. However, Ryo was also bent on remaining a simp, and tried stopping her from launching another blast. At that moment, they realized that their enemies were protected by a barrier, and Sero revealed that they had obtained one of the fragments. As Koro wondered if her pent-up hormones were making her cranky, Ju Zioba grew angry at his words, and was ready to annihilate them all, but Jen stood in her way, and told Ziying to escape. As Ryo decided to help her, Chang Yu tried to stop them, but Jen threatened to slice his head off. To even up the fight, Koro decided to summon his men, and a bunch of worthless losers surrounded them. However, as they flew to attack them, Sero summoned a tornado and blew them out of the cave. Even so, Koro was determined to have his threesome, and tried trapping the girls inside a rock. But Sero summoned a wind to carry them out of the way. So as Koro flew at them with his sword, Jen blocked his attack, and Ju Zioba repelled the loser's dagger before slashing at Koro. Immediately, Sero cast a thunderbolt, and as Chang Yu tried trapping them inside a King Kong barrier, Ju Zioba punched him straight into the sky, and Sero summoned the thunder on Koro, electrocuting him in that instant. As soon as Koro was electrocuted, Jen decided to carry Ziyan away, hoping to get her to a safer spot. And as they walked farther away from the cave, Ziying gave Ryo back his rod, apologizing for stealing it in the first place. Inside the cave, Koro appeared before Sero and tried pounding him, but he jumped away and unleashed his red flame, but Koro shielded it with a rock, forcing the flame to return to him. As he tried to utilize this advantage, Ju Zioba came to the rescue and blasted Koro away. However, the dumbass just would not quit, and decided to launch rocks at them, so Sero cast a water shield, but the rocks penetrated it and forced them to jump away. Hoping to eliminate him, Ju Zioba unleashed a blast, but Koro launched a rock at it, causing it to explode. However, fragments from the energy blasted him, but he managed to summon a rock around him before destroying it. As he began saying that he was practically invincible, Sero decided to cast lightning on the water, electrocuting him instantly, and allowing Juzaioba to blast him with enough energy to isekai his ass. So with the loser dead, the soul fragment appeared before them, and Juzaioba claimed it, before hurrying out to meet the others. Outside the cave, as Gen thought they were finally safe, Changyu jumped out of the rocks, but Ryo tackled him to the ground. As Changyu tried to end him, Gen blocked his attack, managing to break his fall. As he revealed ghost tentacles, they began clashing once more, and he cut him up before jumping away, and nearly eliminated him with the tentacles. With Gen exhausted, Ryo tried to restrain the ugly-ass loser, but he elbowed him, and trapped Gen inside a barrier, before kicking him away for being a useless moron. Desperate to help his brother, Gen began slashing at the barrier, but Changyu thought the sword was familiar. Hoping to utilize his distraction, Ziying cast a web, but he slashed it, and she realized that it was all the energy she had left. In that moment, Changyu cast a petrification spell on Gen, turning his body into stone, and Gen realized that they were all about to get killed. So he began telling Ryo to run away while he could, because with his useless luck, he would probably just get trapped inside another barrier. However, Ryo wouldn't leave without his brother and began punching the barrier, but even with all his strength, he was still useless, so Changyu cast him aside. At that moment, Ryo realized he was the weakest loser in all of anime history, and began wondering if he would remain a sorry-ass loser forever and a fucking liability. Just then, his tiny rod began to arise, and as they noticed the golden light, Gen told Ryo to touch the iron. So as he did, the golden energy transformed into the staff. Immediately, he smacked the barrier and managed to break it, but as it shattered to pieces, he stumbled to the ground, and the stone flesh began to decline. Angered by the sight of him, Changyu kicked him away and seized the staff, but it turned into a rod instantly. As Ryo realized his brother was finally free, he passed out at that moment. The realization made Gen angry, and he slashed Changyu's hand in an instant. As Gen attacked him, he tried using his ghost tentacles, but he slashed it away and broke his barrier. At that moment, Changyu discovered he was just like his father, but he cast a double slash that made him lose all his strength. Realizing his act was done, he decided to reveal that his boss was searching for him, and that she would never stop until he was captured. Just then, he began hearing a mini bell, and the sound isekai'd him. With the loser dead, the second fragment emerged out of his body. That night in the car, Sarah revealed that Zion could not be healed by the Immortal's magic, and Ryo felt responsible for her state, so he began running outside. When he was gone, Sarah suggested that Ziying seals her sister's primordial spirit until she finds a guru that can heal her and put her into a new body. Afraid of losing her sister, Ziying agreed, so Sarah cast a spell on her, and her body disintegrated into an orb, before entering Ziying's ring. At that moment, Ziying sensed her sister's spirit around her, and she promised to stay with her forever. Outside, Ryo began telling Gen that he was a useless weakling, and that he wasn't even deserving of having the ancient rod in the first place, since he couldn't even save anyone. However, Gen thought he was special, and told him to believe in himself, giving him back his rod. Inside the car, as the fragments entered Ryo's little rod, Sero told him that the rod was a container for the fragments, and Juzaioba said that he must protect it with his life. At that moment, Ziying offered to join the group, saying that she has nothing better to do with her hopeless, boring life, so Gen accepted her, willing to stay a worthless virgin simp forever. The following day, as they arrived at the city, Gen realized that Ryo was terribly sick from the magical weight of the rod, and wondered how they would find the Earth's Sage, a spirit healer that was renowned for making spirit medicines. At that moment, Ziying appeared, hot from the summer heat, and Gen forgot his brother like every other worthless loser. As they arrived at a clothing shop, Gen wondered how Ryo would get treatment here, but Juzaioba decided to head inside. Inside the shop, as a disgusting fatso welcomed them, he tried telling Juzaioba that they don't sell boys' clothes, but she screamed at him to open his f***ing eyes. As he realized who they were, he noticed Ziying, and tried offering her his best bikini to support her beautiful massive cannons, but Juzaioba punched the shit out of him. So as he returned to his senses, he began telling them that the lower realm has been in chaos since the celestial realm was sealed up, and that no immortals have visited the store in years. As he pulled a toy, the shop transformed into a medicine store. When he wondered why they came, Juzaioba demanded for senzu beans, so as he removed it from the bottle, she snatched it and dumped it inside Ryo's mouth, nearly choking the poor kid. Just then, Juzaioba wondered why the industrial furnace was open, realizing it made the city as hot as hellfire. So Earth Sage began telling them that a huge meteorite fell into the city over 100 years ago, and that it crashed on the former industrial furnace. Ever since, every day has been summer in the city, and the meteorite became the new industrial furnace, giving continued heat to the city. When Sarah wondered why they weren't trying to cool it down, the man revealed that the territory was now occupied by Evil Cloud, the ruler of the city and boss of the demon clan. To figure out a plan, Sarah told Ryo to create a signal with his rod, so he began spinning it, sending energy waves across the shop. As Sarah noticed the meteorite awakening, he realized that another fragment was within the territory. Just then, Ryo's rod fell off, and they discovered that it had broken from the necklace. As Ju Zioba began heading for the meteorite, Jen offered to support them, and told Zing to protect Ryo in the meantime. Before long, they arrived inside the territory, and they realized that the building was filled with security. As Ju Zioba wondered if they could sneak inside, Jen slashed a hole into the wall, and over 100 security rushed towards the entrance. Meanwhile in the shop, Ryo remained sick. But inside of his spiritual realm, the god of war began slaying the demons, until the demon lord stabbed him in the back, dispelling his body into fragments that appeared before Ryo. When he tried taking one of them, Koro's spirit appeared before him, saying that the demonic energy was exactly what he needs to go from being a worthless loser to the most powerful demon lord ever. Right then, Chang Yu appeared, saying that he has nothing to lose because he was already a loser, and that everyone would eventually dump him because he was too useless anyway. However, Ryo said that he doesn't need the demon power, and at that moment, his rod began to shine a golden light, with an immense energy destroying the ground underneath him. As he began hearing the god of war, the voice told him that his primordial spirit would stay with him forever. But as Ryo regained consciousness, he wondered why Zing's melons were right in his face, and began blushing because he was too close to his crush. As the stick fell out of his pocket, Zing snatched it and hurried out of sight. Afraid she may try to steal it again, Ryo decided to spy on her, but she soon returned and put it around his head like a necklace, saying that the thread would never break this time. On the other hand, Ju Zioba knocked out a security's tooth, but as the rest of them tried attacking at the same time, Jen slashed them all. As they arrived in the lounge, Jen discovered that a girl was drawn in all the portraits, and wondered if she was a goddess. As he let out those words, a man appeared before their eyes, and Jen realized he was Evil Cloud. Desperate to eliminate him, Jen flew with his sword, but his finger ignited a flame, forcing Jen to jump away. As Evil Cloud started heading towards them, the flames burned around him, and he thought their meat would taste good in his mouth.
Pause.
So he revealed that one of the fragments was inside of him, and vowed to keep it forever. Thinking he could eliminate him, Jen flew with his swords, but couldn't even penetrate his barrier. Just then, Evil Cloud cast flames at him, but he managed to shield with his swords before getting blasted away. But luckily, Sero saved him with a light wind, and realized that Jen has already lost consciousness. Figuring out his plan, Sero tried telling Evil Cloud that the meteorite was still awake, and that it could easily destroy the city if it wasn't cooled off. However, Evil Cloud thought he has a better plan, and revealed that he would activate the Fire Bite Forbidden Jutsu, a powerful magic that could shake up their world. As Sero wondered what he intends to really do, he told him that he would destroy the Immortal Palace, the home of all the fairy clans, and called it his revenge for destroying his city. Hearing these words, Ju Zioba grew angry and blasted at him, but a flaming rope launched at her. As she repelled it, the flame returned, but she managed to jump away before creating a celestial blaster. However, it wrapped her weapon, heating it up at that instant. Desperate to retain her weapon, she tried telling Sero to cool it down, so he cast water curling, but even the water couldn't douse the flame. Realizing she may lose her entire arm, Ju Zioba jumped away at the last instant, managing to save herself. As Jen regained consciousness, he decided to challenge Evil Cloud once more, telling Ju Zioba to escape. Looking to stop her, Evil Cloud launched a fireball, but Jen slashed it with his swords and told her to run away. So as she began running off, Sero followed her, but she hoped that he would somehow survive. Inside the city, as the people noticed that the furnace was erupting, lava began spilling into the city. At that moment, Ryo realized that his brother may be screwed after all, and wondered if the others would ever make it back alive. Meanwhile, inside the building, Evil Cloud began launching fireballs at Jen. But as he threw a sword through the smoke, he caught it from behind and slashed at him, causing him to disintegrate. But a flaming rope wrapped his ankle and smacked him on the floor. Even so, Jen would not surrender, and started swinging his swords, trying to slay him to pieces. But Evil Cloud punched him into the wall, and began saying that he was too weak and hopeless to even stand a chance with him. As he was ready to send him off to an isekai, he cast flames to burn him up, but a water shield appeared before them, blocking the flames at the last moment. However, it began to melt, and they noticed a cut on Sero's neck. As they realized they really stood no chance, Sero summoned a smoke cloud that allowed them to escape. However, Evil Cloud noticed exactly what he wanted and scooped up Sero's blood. As he wrote a spell, a symbol appeared and the meteorite began ascending. Before their eyes, a flame rose towards the meteorite, and Juzaioba wondered how she could stop him. Right then, flaming fireballs began descending on the city, so the immortals started running away. At the same time, the people began running towards the shelter, and Rio wondered if his brother was already roasted meat. However, Ziying thought he would definitely survive, and shielded Rio from a blast. Realizing they may soon become roasted meat, Ziying suggested they find shelter. However, as they began running away, Rio started running back like a headless moron, but soon found a frightened little girl, and managed to rescue her before getting flattened like pancake. At that moment, the immortals began running towards them, and they discovered that Jen was unconscious. Inside the shelter, as Sero began wondering how Evil Cloud managed to control the industrial furnace for so many years, Earth's sage revealed that it was probably through the core. However, they all realized that one of them must sneak inside, and thought that only Ziying could steal the core. As she realized it was their only hope for saving the city, she decided to agree. That evening, she began sneaking inside a vent. Lord have mercy.
We must stay focused, brothers. We must stay focused.
She noticed two pervs spying on a hot secretary. While they were distracted, she cast a web to unscrew the vent, and knocked out one of the men, before choking the other. Inside another room, Ziying broke the secretary's mirror and pinned her to the wall, demanding to know where the core was hidden. Afraid for herself, the secretary told her that the key card for the secret room was deep inside her bag. But as Ziying believed her shitty lie, she smacked her arm off and hit her in the ribs. As she tried seizing her with a tie and nearly pounded her with her foot, Ziying did the splits, and holy fuck. Sorry guys, this part is really hard to narrate with one hand. Fuck, I meant it's really hard to edit. It's really hard to edit. As she launched her webs to trap the secretary onto the wall, she began emptying her bag, but discovered that it had no key card. Hoping to get her confession, Ziying decided to cast her web around her and begin the greatest plot development session in all of anime. At the same time, the shelter began to crumble and rubble fell down from the roof, but Evil Cloud continued throwing fireballs, and Sero thought he must have really lost his mind. Realizing they could not hide forever, Juzaioba decided to reveal her weapon, so Sero told Rio that they only intend to stall Evil Cloud until Ziying finds the core. After the secretary climaxed, she decided to reveal the secret room's password, but Ziying hoped she would be able to last longer since she was fun to play with. However, she began heading for the secret room, but as she took a step inside, the alarm system was triggered, and a Terminator appeared before her eyes, recognizing her as an intruder, but she instantly jumped away. In the city, as Evil Cloud began searching for the fairies, he repelled a blast from Juzaioba and ascended into the air. Believing they should be annihilated for his loss, he launched a huge fireball at them, but Sero cast a shield to destroy it, and Juzaioba began firing blasts, but he repelled all of them. When Juzaioba wondered what he was trying to get revenge for, his anger grew even worse, and he unleashed a mighty flame to obliterate them, but Sero cast his frost barrier, managing to repel the flame. At that instant, Rio's staff stabbed the ground, creating a barrier around them as he appeared before their eyes. However, he was exhausted from consuming all of his magic, and Evil Cloud landed before him. Rio tried persuading him to cease his attacks, saying that his city was nearly ruined already. And at that moment, Evil Cloud noticed all the destruction, and began to feel sad because he was a lonely deranged menace, who already lost the love of his life after she was crushed under rubble. It was at that moment, a fragment had appeared and gave him the power of the flaming god, and he thought it was for nothing but revenge. On top of that, he blamed the fairy clan for creating a protective field that repelled the demon lord's fire meteorite. When he tried destroying their immortal palace, the meteorite had changed directory after striking the field and fell into the lower realm, destroying their city, and even causing the death of his wife. This was Evil Cloud's motivation for revenge, and he said that annihilating the two immortals was the perfect way to begin. With his anger growing worse, he prepared a fire blast and flung it at Juzaioba, but Rio cast a golden warrior barrier to protect her. However, even the slightest magic consumed his strength, and he began telling Evil Cloud that he was not different from the fairy clan he hates. After all, he was controlled by vengeance, and said that killing everyone would not bring back the love of his life. However, his anger only got worse, and he soon lost control, transforming into a huge beast. He said that he already vowed to slay all the immortals he finds, and punched Ryo away for talking too much. On the other hand, Zing managed to kill the Terminator, but as she cast her web to retrieve the core, it began to freeze, forcing her to withdraw immediately. At that moment, she noticed the machine before her and wondered what the fuck it was. At the same time, Ryo managed to survive the punch, and the barrier saved him from smashing his head. However, he was too weak, and the beast tried telling him to give up already, because that's the only thing a worthless loser like him can do. Even so, Ryo wouldn't stop, but as the monster tried to eliminate them all, he noticed the signal from the core, and realized that their plan was to stall him. So he prepared a great fireball, and blew up the entire area before heading towards the signal. As the smoke cleared, Ryo cancelled the barrier, and Sero realized they were lucky to be alive. Determined to protect his crush, Ryo revealed that he was heading for the furnace, so Sero decided to boost him with extra magic, and he vanished before their eyes. Meanwhile, in the secret room, Zing sensed someone's presence, and hid away as a new enemy arrived. Realizing he was a demon, she wondered why he came to the lower realm, but he retrieved the core at that instant. Just then, Evil Cloud appeared before him, demanding for the core, but Beastman threatened to beat him until he could no longer walk. Eager to reclaim his core, Evil Cloud launched flames at him, but he jumped away, flying at him, and locked their hands against one another. Right then, Beastman transformed to Super Bull, and Evil Cloud knew he was definitely screwed. As he punched him away, every single tooth nearly fell out, so Super Bull ended him before he even landed, forcing him to return to his human form. With his soul already isekai'd, the fragment came out of his body, and Beastman added it to his trophy collection. As he noticed the meteorite descending towards the city, he realized that this might be his best chance at witnessing an apocalypse. Before he knew it, Ryo's staff knocked his cube to the ground, and began absorbing the fragment. As he realized the staff was absorbing his powers, he pulled it away, and nearly hacked Ryo in half, but Zing managed to rescue him. As Beastman realized he couldn't relinquish the staff, he severed himself and vanished at that instant. So with the meteorite close to destroying the city, Evil Cloud revealed that destroying the core would make it vanish. Immediately, Ryo grabbed his staff and smashed it, causing a great ice to spread across the city, and eventually stretched to the sky, freezing up the meteorite until it exploded into snow particles. And with Ryo having consumed too much energy, he passed out from exhaustion. A few days later, as they arrived at the Divine River to heal Jen's injuries, Sero began telling Ryo that several people travel here to make wishes and heal their wounds. So that night, as Jen soaked inside the river, Ryo decided to observe his wounds as it healed, and thought the island was definitely special. Just then, they noticed a mysterious man on the cliff, and Jen decided to find out who he was. However, as he arrived on the shore, Ryo tried telling him to mind his own business and stay away from the man. But the useless moron would not listen, and revealed that he was curious to know who the man really was. So he told him that he wishes his dreams would come true. But the man thought he was full of shit. As he noticed his double swords, the man who was called Ghost remembered his battle with a legendary demon hunter who defeated him more than 100 years ago, leaving him with a permanent scar across his face. Afraid he was being mistaken for someone else, Jen began telling him that he wasn't the demon hunter who kicked his ass, but that the sword was handed to him by his father. Even so, Ghost thought he was probably not deserving of the sword, because weak, disgusting losers like him were better off sticking to an ordinary weapon. However, Jen would not accept getting bullied, and drew his swords, calling Ghost his greatest rival. Realizing they were close to challenging for a duel, Ryo tried suggesting they make peace, but Ghost told him that he was definitely not leaving without a duel. As Ju Zioba and Sero arrived, Ryo decided to explain everything to them. So in hopes of making peace, Ju Zioba tried telling the man to leave, but he cast a slash that caused an explosion and nicked her hair. At that moment, her life flashed before her eyes, and she nearly passed out from the shock. Ghost told them that he would not leave without a duel, and vowed to hunt them if they tried to escape. Hoping to buy them some time, Zing decided to reveal that Jen was injured and was far from recovering. She said that there would be no honor in having a duel since he was wounded, so Ghost thought her words made sense, and said that he would wait until the next day. Immediately, he stabbed the ground, casting a magical signal across the island, and said that their battle would begin at sunrise. before starting to leave. Later in the car, as they began wondering how they could escape unnoticed, Rio wondered who Ghost was, so Ziying began telling him his story. More than a century ago, Ghost was a commander in God Race's army, but had stolen a sacred steel from the demon clan, and instilled his spirit inside, becoming one with the weapon. The Demon King had grown angry after finding this out, and sent his elite soldiers to eliminate him. But Ghost slayed them all, and even killed the Demon King. Hearing these words, Juzaioba realized they couldn't possibly stand a chance with him. However, Gen decided to remain the useless bonehead he always was, and said that the sword was all he needed to defeat him, as he thought they have some hidden powers that were yet to be revealed. This would be the key to his victory, and he thought he would make the best use of the swords. However, Juzaioba thought he was probably weaker than his words, and wondered if Sero could teleport them to a safe distance. But he told her that his magic could not teleport everyone. On top of that, Ghost already scanned the whole area, and would easily notice their disappearance if they vanished. Confident of his victory, Gen told them that he would definitely not run away, and began saying that no real man should ever run away from a fight. Hearing his words, Rio realized that persuading him was hopeless, and ran out heartbroken. That night, as Gen soaked inside the river, Ziying tried showing her support, but he thought she wanted to develop plot with him. However, she began saying that Rio was afraid of losing him like they lost their father, and told him to survive the duel no matter what. So when it was morning, as Gen was ready for the duel, Sero told him that he was fully recovered, and that he would have the speed advantage in the fight. Gen thought he's never felt better, and told Rio that he must never back away from a challenge, as it was the true meaning of a demon hunter. As he charged at him, he flew with his swords, but Ghost blocked his attack, smacking his other sword, and jumped away like it was nothing. In an instant, Gen tried striking him from behind, but he blocked his swords, and smacked him off to a rock. Even so, Gen flew back, but Ghost smacked him off once again, and slashed at him, but he was luckily saved by Ziying's web armor. Before he knew it, Ghost nearly penetrated the armor, but he threw himself to the sand, narrowly escaping his doom. So Ghost began stabbing with his sword, and the speed looked like 100 swords at once, forcing Gen to remember his old memories. When he was younger, he trained with his father in a similar style, trying to dodge a single stick, and his father wondered why he was afraid of fighting back. But as he tried to charge, he smacked him on the head, saying that he was too weak for his own good. Thinking he could prove himself, Gen began running off, hoping to lure his father into a trap. So as he nearly caught up with him, Gen threw his stick, but he smacked it away like it was nothing. However, Gen thought Yuan was about to fall for his trick, and hurled the stick again. But he kicked it into a tree and jammed him in the belly. By the next day, as they sparred again, Gen managed to back Yuan into a tree, but as he nearly struck him, Gen pointed his stick at him, saying that he would never run out of tricks. Just then, he cast sand, hoping to distract Ghost with the trick, but he blocked his attack and jumped back. As Gen followed him, light sparkled from their clash, and Ziying realized that Gen was trying to get close enough like he did with his father, but Rio wondered if it was even possible. Right then, Gen managed to deflect Ghost's sword, catching it in his arm, and thought he certainly won, so he raised up his sword and sliced him. However, when the dust cleared, he realized that Ghost had only a cut, and he called him a useless coward that couldn't even finish him off. So deciding to get serious, he blasted Gen away, and a dark energy surrounded his sword. At the sight of it, Ziying realized he was revealing his legendary sword powers. Ready to end him, Ghost cast a dark slash at Gen, but as he managed to survive it, they realized his armor was cracked, and Ziying wondered if Ghost has discovered the armor's weakness. As Ghost flew at him, he cast another slash, weakening the armor, and continued casting the dark energy, forcing Gen to run away. Even so, Ghost continued blasting his armor until it eventually shattered. Luckily, Gen managed to block his sword just in time, but Ghost told him that he could never defeat him. When Gen heard those words, he remembered the time he was younger. A wounded man had appeared in the forest, warning him about a monster in the village. So deciding to be a brave warrior, Gen began running towards the village with the ancient double swords, hoping to find the monster. As the bear tried to isekai a kid, Gen came flying with the swords, but it smacked him into a tree. However, Gen would not quit, and screamed to draw the bear's attention, so as it jumped at him, he managed to survive its attack. Just as his blood began trickling down to the swords, a dark aura began oozing from them, taking over his mind, and making him determined to slay it. As he flew to end it, Yon knocked him back and commanded the bear to leave. So when they returned home, Yuan told him that using a blood sacrifice on the swords would awaken the demon inside, but said that it could destroy him. As he was determined not to surrender, Jen clashed with Ghost, but they backed away instantly. He thought quitting was not an option, and realized that he must stay alive to protect Ryo. As Ghost slashed at him, he sliced the energy, but he cast another that sent him crashing. Ghost thought he doesn't deserve to be a warrior, and wondered how he would protect his brother if he couldn't even save himself. However, Jen was certain that he could still be his protector, and thought his life was worth it. Realizing he needed to become stronger, Jen slashed his swords, and his blood trickled all the way down. He began to ooze with a dark flaming aura. As Ziying wondered why he slit himself, Ryo realized he was trying to perform the blood ritual. But Ghost thought he would finally get some competition. In an instant, Jen knocked him into a rock and smacked him to the ground. However, this only made him excited, and he thought he was finally having a worthy competitor. As they fought across the sand, Sero told the girls that Jen had definitely acquired a new power, but Juzioba said that winning was the only thing that matters. As Ghost called Jen a useless filthy weakling, he pushed him far off and jumped very high, splitting the ground and even separating a rock. Hoping to see him unleash his full powers, Ghost told him to fight like a man. He remembered 100 years ago, when he fought with the greatest demon hunter, Kai Tian, and demanded to know what motivates him to fight. As Kai Tian told him that he hopes to end the wars, he jumped back onto a rock, hoping to end the fight. But Ghost was unwilling to accept this, and began saying that battles were supposed to be a survival of the fittest. But Kai Tian thought it was meaningless, and said that it would never end the war. However, his words only made Ghost angrier, and he attacked him again. So they began clashing once more, but as Ghost jumped back, he returned with a slash, eventually slitting his face. Even so, Kai Tian continued saying that fighting would not create peace. However, after realizing that Ghost would not quit, he revealed a special defense magic, and slashed him in an instant. So in hopes of also proving himself, Jen began charging at Ghost, but he smacked him into the water, and the others thought it was all over. However, the dark energy pulled him out, taking control over his mind, and he vowed to slay him this time. As he rushed to end him, Ghost jumped away, but he followed him and smacked him towards the ground. As Ghost managed to land on the sand, Jen nearly stabbed him into the ground. But Ghost thought he was only getting closer to being as good as Kai Tian. Just then, Jen began approaching his friends, and Juzioba thought he came to show off his power. But just as they noticed his eyes, he raised his sword to end them, but Ryo blocked his attack, and tried telling him to return to his senses. However, he raised his sword again, and struck the ground. As they realized they could have easily been killed, Juzioba began screaming at him to return to his right mind. But he only saw demons in their place. Immediately, he flew at Zuyun and began slashing at her, but she managed to dodge his attacks. Before he could attack once again, Sero blasted him into a rock and cast ice on him, hoping to calm him down. Thinking he had returned to his right mind, Ryo decided to check up on him, but he jabbed him away for being a worthless deadbeat loser. With Jen determined to slay everyone, he destroyed the ice at once, but dust blew into his path, and before he knew it, a sword pierced his arm. And as his friends realized Ghost was their savior, he passed out at that instant. As he entered the spirit realm, he noticed the swords before him and began saying that he wishes to continue with the fight. But as he grabbed the swords, it revealed one of Kai Tian's memories instead. Decades ago, during the wars, Kai Tian traveled through the villages with Yuan, wondering how he could protect the lower realm and save them from starving. The wars had made them lose everything, and even monsters soon arrived to devour the survivors. However, Kai Tian managed to slay them all, but realized that it would not help the villages to survive, so he told Yuan that he would make peace with the underworld. But as he arrived, he discovered the demons had all been slain, and Ghost decided to challenge him to the battle. By the time he returned several years later, he was already old, and even returned with baby Ryo. So as Yuan agreed to take him in as his own son, Kai Tian told him that Ryo was their hope for ending the war, and said that the war must be stopped no matter what. As Jen finally regained consciousness, Ghost removed his sword, deciding to spare his life. However, the useless dumbass had a death wish, and decided to challenge him again. But Ghost told him that he was only sparing his life because Kai Tian spared his own, and vowed to slay him next time. As Jen tried telling him to f*** himself, Ghost rushed towards him, but decided to spare him again, telling him to become a real man before challenging him once more. Just as he began to leave, Jen fell from exhaustion, but his wound healed instantly. Happy to see him restored to his right mind, Ryo began running towards him, and started crying like a useless ugly kid. As they joined the others, Jen began saying that he was hungry, so Sero suggested they return to the car. That evening, as they stared at the river, Gen told Ryo that he was chosen to wield the ancient staff because he was very special, and said that the best way to unleash its full power was by reclaiming all the soul fragments. Later in the car, as Gen began wondering how they could unleash the powers inside the double swords, Ju Zioba appeared at that moment, saying that Fenkun, a faraway city in the lower realm, could definitely help them. With Gen angered by the sight of her useless face, he tried telling her to stick her nose into her own business, but she threatened to beat his ass and called him a disgusting worthless loser. As Sero arrived, he revealed that Fenkun was the only city of deities in the lower realm, and said that they would definitely get a solution there. So as they began driving towards the city, Ryo noticed that his little rod had managed to find a signal to another soul fragment, so Sero revealed that it must be inside the city. When they arrived at Fenkun, they thought the city was stunning, and were scanned by the security device. At that moment, they discovered the prince would be getting married within a few days, but Ju Zioba was mad at the news, and the group wondered if she was starting to lose her mind. However, Ryo was only hoping to see the king, and wondered if they would be allowed into the wedding. Just then, a bunch of knights arrived, and the leader invited them to the palace, saying that the prince was asking to see them. Inside the palace, as they began eating like hungry, filthy, abandoned kids, the prince, Tianyu, appeared before them, welcoming them to his city. As Sero decided to introduce himself, he wondered if they could see the king, but Tianyu revealed that they could only see him at the wedding. When Ziying wondered who the bride was, Tianyu told them that Ju Zioba was his bride, saying that she had always been the love of his life ever since they were little. On top of that, he revealed that he recorded her body scan on his security system several years ago, waiting for her return to his city. Her discovery of the system had prompted the wedding announcement, and Tianyu revealed he was happy to see her return to him. As Ju Zioba confessed that she would force a group of fat asses to bully him, so she could save him and take his pocket money to buy ice cream, Tianyu thought none of it mattered, and told her that heaven had reunited them. However, as she realized he was still a hopeless loser, she tried telling him to find another moron like him. But Sero managed to tell her that playing along was their only hope for finding the soul fragment. Having no other choice, she decided to agree, and followed the prince as he left. Realizing their opportunity, the rest of the group decided to head out, intending to scout the city. Outside the palace, as Ryo's metal rod detected a signal, Sero decided to follow it, hoping it would lead them to the soul fragment. Inside the city, as Ziying noticed a thief stealing a lady's necklace, Gen thought it was his chance to impress her, and decided to challenge him, thinking he would be called a hero. However, the thief knocked him away and ran off through the crowd. Before he knew it, the lady told the knights that he was actually the thief, and they discovered he was wearing the stolen necklace. So they arrested him immediately, and were ready to kick him out of the city, but Ziying revealed that they were special guests for the prince's wedding. However, as the knights checked the system, they discovered that Ziying and Gen have been registered as illegal migrants, and decided to arrest them. Luckily, they managed to escape, but wondered what the fuck was happening. At the same time, Ryo and Gen began searching all over the city, wondering why the fragment's signal was rotating. And Sero began to wonder if there was even a fragment here. Just then, they discovered the signal was leading outside the city, so they decided to head out into the forest. However, as they arrived outside, they realized the signal was gone, and wondered if someone was controlling it. As they decided to return to the city, the PA system announced that the city would be sealed for the wedding. And before their eyes, the gates closed up, and a barrier knocked Ryo to the ground. As Sero decided to bang on it, it repelled him, making him realize that the barrier was very strong. As he began wondering why the city was suddenly sealed up, an old man appeared before them, and began asking for their help to return inside. After realizing the man was a resident of the city, Ryo tried asking the security to allow him in. But when they turned him down at once, Sero thought it was definitely suspicious. However, Ryo tried finding a way inside, and threw a hook at the barrier, but it fell. So Sero tried using magical barriers as steps, but as he nearly arrived at the top, it crumbled, forcing him to return to the ground. Just then, the old man suggested another way inside, saying that an underground secret tunnel was built outside the city, and offered to lead them to the spot. When they arrived, Ryo managed to open the entrance, revealing the secret tunnel. So as they entered the tunnel, Ryo thought it would definitely lead into the city, and decided to lead the way. But a barrier repelled him. Realizing the barrier was made by his clan, Sero decided to try his luck, and successfully made his way inside. As he noticed the hieroglyphics on the walls, he tried figuring out a way to break the barrier. Just then, he nicked his finger on a nail, and the blood caused the barrier to dissolve. At that moment, the old man made his way inside, so Rio decided to follow him. Before long, they arrived at the end of the tunnel, and Sero said it probably leads into a street. So the old man began climbing out, and as Rio and Sero emerged outside, they realized it was actually a bar. To pretend they were performers, Sero cast a spell on Rio, making him somersault a few times before they ended the show. However, as they noticed the old man was gone, a knight began pursuing them across the street, and Sero discovered they were on a screen. As they managed to hide in the crowd, the PA system announced that they were illegal immigrants and commanded that they be arrested immediately. At that moment, everyone noticed them in the crowd, so they began running again. As they realized their faces were all over the screens, Rio wondered why the old man wasn't noticed, so Zhen told him that it was probably a setup from the very start. Meanwhile, Juzaioba was already dressed up for her wedding, and decided to have a photo shoot with the prince. However, as she grew sick of playing along, she stamped on his foot and began wondering why he was marrying her anyway. Tianyu decided to reveal that he actually sent the kids to bully him when they were little, as he realized that it was the only way to catch her attention. It had been his plan from the very start, and he thought he could lure her into marrying him by making her his hero. This discovery made her sick in the stomach, so she told him that she never had a desire to marry him, but that her only intention was to find the soul fragment. However, Tianyu was not willing to accept this, so he decided to hold her like a poor kid who just lost his mother. At that moment, the lensman took a perfect photo of them, and the entire city thought they made a great couple. At the sight of this, Rio thought something was certainly wrong, and Sero realized that Tianyu was definitely the reason. Inside the palace, as Juzaioba tried commanding the man to delete the photograph, Tianyu took control over her mind with the soul fragment, saying that he would not lose her to anyone. In the city, as the PA system announced that the wedding would be held in the main hall, Ziying wondered how they could sneak inside, but Zhen suggested they break in. However, she thought his suggestion was as moronic as his face, and decided to sit beside two ugly simps. As she revealed that she was trapped inside the city, she cast her web on their invitation envelopes, and linked it to Zhen's rope. By the time the hopeless simps realized this, she had already vanished. So Zhen and Ziying began heading towards the palace, realizing their entrance into the hall was certain. Meanwhile, having been captured, Rio and Sero were thrown into a cell. With Rio desperate to regain his freedom, he began saying that they were friends of the king's bride, and Sero told them that they were heading for the wedding. So to discover the truth, the knights decided to check their device and realized they actually entered the city with Juzaioba. Realizing they were telling the truth, one of the knights decided to reveal it to the prince. But as he arrived inside the cell, he demanded to know why they snuck back into the city. Rio began saying that they returned to save the others, but Tianyu thought none of it matters, and revealed the soul fragment, saying that he would turn them into his puppet. Determined to stop him, Rio summoned his staff and jumped at him, but Tianyu vanished and kicked him away like useless trash. As Sero tried knocking him from behind, he dodged him and rammed a punch into his belly. At once, he summoned the fragment and took control over his mind before binding Rio with a magical rope. However, as he decided to take over his mind, he entered Rio's consciousness and began absorbing his powers. Just then, he heard a voice from the darkness, and as he wondered who it was, Rio caught his hand and began absorbing his own powers. As he managed to back away, he realized that he nearly lost his soul fragment and wondered who Rio really was. Immediately, Sero decided to step up for the fight, allowing Tianyu to leave. Before he knew it, Sero punched him in the gut and was ready to end him at that moment, but he managed to roll away. So he broke the cuffs with his magic and began launching flames at Rio, but he evaded them all and knocked him to the ground, causing him to fall unconscious. As Rio was determined to escape, he began wondering how he could reunite with the others. At that moment, he realized that Zhen and Ziying would probably never find him here, and thought he must escape on his own. However, he was too afraid, thinking he would easily be captured again. As he wondered why he was still too weak, he began hearing a voice from his inner spirit. When he wondered who he was, he told him that he was his guardian, and said that he was keeping his true powers away from him, and that the Shenzhen iron was just a lock to keep him under control. However, none of this made sense to Rio, so he decided to summon the staff, thinking he could slay the spirit. But as he swung it, he began descending, but managed to catch it again, and soon started wondering if it was all an illusion. Deciding to try a new plan, he began screaming for help, saying that Sero has been cursed and would soon explode. And as the dumbass guard believed his bullshit, he opened up the cell, but Rio knocked his ass to sleep. Realizing his opportunity, he tried leaving the dungeon, but discovered he had lost his way, and noticed a man locked up inside a special cell. As the man offered to lead him out, he told him he was Emperor Chang'an, the true ruler of the city. Shocked by this discovery, Ryo wondered why he was trapped inside a cell, so Chang'an told him that his useless, disgusting son had locked him up so that he would rule the kingdom. Just then, Chang'an noticed his staff, and as he wondered if it was the Shenzhen iron, Ryo thought he must truly be the ruler to have noticed it. As he managed to open the lock, he loosed the chains and revealed why they came into the city. So with the emperor finally free, he agreed to take back the city. Before long, they arrived at the palace, but as Ryo tried sneaking inside, the guards spotted him and tried to arrest him. Just then, another guard noticed Chang'an and was ready to arrest both of them. At that moment, a smoke cloud surrounded them, allowing Zhen and Ziying to knock them unconscious. But at the sight of him, Ryo became a sorry-ass kid again and began crying like a worthless loser. Afterwards, he introduced them to the emperor and revealed that Sero has been brainwashed by the prince. As Ziying realized he probably did the same to Zhu Zioba, Chang'an revealed that it was the power of the soul fragment. Before they knew it, Zhen pointed his sword at the emperor, wondering if he could identify his swords. As he revealed they were Qitian's renowned double swords, Zhen realized he was truly the man they came looking for, and hurried off to find disguises. So with the group ready to challenge the prince, they began heading into the hall. Inside the hall, they tried mixing with the crowd, and the prince's ugly uncle welcomed them to the wedding. As Zhan began telling Ziying to rescue Sero when Tianyu arrives, they discovered that Sero was already inside the hall, appearing as the family of the bride. When Ziying wondered if the emperor could reveal himself, he told them that Tianyu was controlling the knights with his magic, and that once discovered, they would be attacked immediately. He said that their only hope was to challenge Tianyu to a duel, and that Zhen must certainly kick his ass. Only then would he reveal himself as the emperor and take back control of his kingdom. At that moment, the prince arrived with his zombie bride, but as they began exchanging vows, Zhen decided to intrude on their union. As he challenged Tianyu to a fight, everyone thought he came for the bride, so the uncle suggested they head for the arena for a proper showdown. At the arena, as Zhen and Tianyu faced off, the crowd began cheering for the prince. But Chang'an thought this was their chance to escape with Zhu Zioba, so with Zhen ready for battle, he jumped at the prince, but he shielded his sword, and Ziying managed to sneak off to Sero. As she realized he wasn't moving, she began smacking him, hoping to return him to his right mind. However, Tianyu noticed her and discovered they were trying to distract him. So with a snap, he commanded Sero to stand, and he fell on top of her. But as he punched the ground, she became afraid and kicked him away. At the same time, Zhen and Tianyu continued fighting, and she wondered how he was controlling Sero from a distance. As Tianyu wondered if she had left, Zhen nicked his face, telling him to get serious as he was fighting like a blind kid. So Tianyu decided to reveal his Ice Soul Dragon Spear, and the crowd thought he would cut Zhen to pieces. In an instant, Tianyu flashed past him and knocked him back. As he jabbed at him, a cut appeared on his arm, and Ryo managed to sneak to Zhu Zioba. However, she was totally lost to this world, and Ryo noticed that ice was spreading over Zhen's arm. Desperate to save his brother, he suggested the emperor reveals himself, but he told him the right time hasn't come, afraid that no one would believe him. As Zhen charged at him, Tianyu dodged his slash and nearly stabbed him into the ground. Even so, Zhen returned, determined not to surrender, and blocked Tianyu's spear before getting kicked away. Tianyu told him that it was impossible to break the seal of the higher realm, and said that they were better off ignoring the rest of the soul fragments. But Zhen thought he was too afraid to admit he was actually weak. The thought made him angry, reviving his strength, and he jumped on top of Tianyu before he knew it, even landing on him. However, Tianyu returned, nearly stabbing him, but as he jumped to the other side, he managed to strike him, spilling his tomato sauce. Even so, Tianyu would not quit, and the both of them thought they were making the right decision, and began oozing with separate energy. So they continued battling, destroying the ground around them. And as Tianyu started rising with a whirlwind, Zhen followed him, and as they struck weapons, the wind from their clash blew the uncle away. As the smoke cleared, Ryo began revealing to everyone that Tianyu was a fraud, and that he locked the emperor away so that he would steal his place as the leader. Right then, the knights recognized the emperor and wondered why he vanished. So as Chang'an appeared before them, he began saying that Tianyu trapped him inside the dungeon so that he would steal his throne. At that moment, he commanded his soldiers to arrest him, so they surrounded him immediately. Hoping to persuade them, Tianyu tried saying that Chang'an was controlled by a demon, but everyone thought he was a disgusting liar. However, as they prepared to arrest him, Tianyu decided to unleash his full power, and blasted ice into the ground, freezing up the security guards and the entire arena. But even with this power, Jen managed to stay warm, and Tianyu wondered how he was so powerful, seeing as he was only human. Before he knew it, Jen slashed his thigh, but he stabbed him in the back. Afraid for his city, Tianyu tried saying that the emperor was a monster that should be slain. But Jen began charging at him once more. As they clashed weapons, Tianyu began revealing that Ryo was tricked by the demon. And at that moment, Chonagin emerged, and a spirit rose out of him, transforming into Samire, the demon who killed Jen's father. So she began saying that she was never weakened, and that she only pretended to be, so that they would fall into her scheme. When Chongyun first suggested that Tianyu lock him up inside a cell, he told him that Samire would take control over his body at any time. So to protect their city, Tianyu agreed to seal his father away in the dungeon, hoping that Samire would vanish once he was dead. However, she managed to stay alive, and Tianyu revealed that this was their final chance to kill her. Immediately, Jen stopped him, hungry for revenge, and revealed that she isekai'd his father. This realization made Tianyu slow down, and Jen flew away immediately, ready to slice her into a million pieces. But just as he got close enough, Ryo appeared before his eyes, and he managed to stop just in time. So she forced him to summon his staff, and he knocked Jen away. In an instant, Tianyu tried slaying her, but she vanished, and told them that their real opponent was only just arriving. Right then, she rang a mini bell, and the old man appeared in the arena. When Ryo wondered how he found his way here, Samire rang the bell again, and the old man transformed into the monster demon Asura, landing with a powerful roar. Before they knew it, he smacked them away, but as they managed to land, he landed before them once again, roaring with his filthy breath. Realizing he would be a tough enemy, Jen and Tianyu agreed to slay it together, but Ryo wondered why he was too useless to ever defend himself. As they evaded his attack, Tianyu managed to kick Asura away, but he eventually punched him back. When Jen tried to slash him, he discovered his swords could not cut through, but decided to retreat. So Tianyu upgraded his spear with the Soul of Ice, seeing as his attacks have been useless, and managed to get a jab. But as he leapt back, he cast ice around the monster, allowing Jen to slash across his body. However, Asura broke the ice, but as the fragments nearly pierced Juzaioba, Tianyu managed to destroy them. As he rushed to end both of them, he mysteriously stopped and flew to end Juzaioba instead, but Tianyu protected her, stabbing him in the heart and taking the blow. So Jen slashed the demon, but Juzaioba was sad that he sacrificed himself for her, wondering why he had to simp until the very end. Tianyu told her that he was born to be a simp and apologized for hypnotizing her with a spell. However, she thought she was ready to stay with him now and told him that they could live together forever. But he gave her his soul of ice and his life left his body. With Samire ready to claim the soul fragment, Jen tried to attack her, but she manipulated Ryo into the way. As Juzaioba grew angry, she summoned her launcher and began blasting at them, but realized that Ryo already summoned the King Kong barrier. However, the kid had no control over his body and wondered what was happening to him. Afraid he may be trapped forever, he tried screaming for Jen to run away, but he told him that he would rather fight until the very end. So he spilled his blood for a blood sacrifice, but Asura appeared at that instant and knocked him off to the arena. As he followed him, Jen dodged his attack and stabbed his body before jumping away. As the spirit of the sword tried taking over his mind, he nudged himself to remain in control. However, Samire decided to attack his soul, and the scene of his father's death returned to his memories, eventually weakening his body. Just then, his father appeared in a flaming aura, telling him that the true strength in his double swords would soon be unleashed, and it would make him the greatest demon slayer in the world. At that moment, his strength revived, and Kai Tian appeared before his eyes, awakening the power in the swords. When Jen wondered how he managed to do so, Kai Tian told him that the true power comes from the desire to protect their loved ones. So as Jen awakened the same power, Samire realized she was about to lose the battle, and commanded the demon to kill him. But as he attacked him, Jen slayed him in an instant, and appeared behind Samire, ready to slice her useless head off. However, she made Ryo attack him, smacking him away to a tower, and nearly knocking him into the ground. As Jen managed to block his staff, she forced Ryo to continue with the attacks, as he crushed a pillar of ice. Even so, she wasn't done, but continued moving Ryo until he knocked Jen into the ground. When he was too weak to move, she tried to make Ryo kill him, but he caught the staff and managed to restrain his brother. Thinking they were hopeless, Ryo asked Jen to put him out of his misery, but Samire decided to summon the five-finger prison, ready to trap them inside forever. So to protect his brother, Jen told Ryo not to lose himself and threw him outside just in time. But as Ryo grew angry for revenge, he decided to summon his demon spirit and offered up his soul in exchange for power. Meanwhile, Samire was ready to take Ryo to her castle as a trophy for her master, but as her threads broke, Ryo's power unleashed. At the sight of him, she realized he was actually a powerful ancient god, and Ryo revealed that he's the supreme lord of the 6 realms. On top of that, he thought her face was too ugly to look at, and stabbed her heart before she could even move. When she tried begging for forgiveness, Ryo obliterated her worthless body until she vanished, but soon passed out. So with the city finally at peace, they decided to bury Tanyu, but Ju Zioba was sad that she would never see him again. By the time the team were ready to leave, the king suggested they head to Zumi Mountain, saying that they would find more soul fragments there. When Ziying wondered how they would reach the mountain, seeing as there were no roads to lead the way, the king decided to summon a cross-border transmission door, but told them to watch their backs once they make their way through. However, Jen thought it would be easy, so they drove off into the portal, ready for their next adventure. Watch this next video. Till next time, my fellow legendary plot masters.